Elagabalus Aurelius Antonius, born Sextus Varius Avitus Bassianus, was the 25th or 26th Roman emperor. They were believed to have been born in the year 204 CE. They are famous for being an unstable teenage Roman emperor and for possibly being transgender. They ruled for almost 4 years, but from 218 to 222 CE, before assassination due to many social and religious changes they instituted. Elagabalus was born in Syria to Sextus Varius Bassianus and Julia Soimus Bassiana. Their matriarchal grandmother, Julia Misa, was sister-in-law to the emperor at the time, Caracalla, as well as the widow of a consul, and intended to be a very powerful political force within the Roman Empire. They may have had a brother, as Marcellus, their father's tombstone states this, but nothing is known about this brother. Elagabalus became a priest of the local sun god, who is most commonly known as Baal, but also known as El-Gabal, Heliogabalus, Elagabalus, and Il-Al-Jabal at an unknown age, though UNVR states they may have become a priest only a couple of years before becoming emperor. They became a priest because their family held hereditary rights to that position. After the Emperor Caracalla was assassinated in 211 CE, the commander of the Praetorian Guard, Macrinus, became emperor, but Julia Misa and her advisor and Elagabalus' tutor, Gannes, plotted to get the 14-year-old Elagabalus on the throne, so Julia would be one of the most powerful people in the empire. They did this by starting a rumor that Elagabalus was the illegitimate child of the otherwise childless Caracalla, and therefore the rightful ruler of Rome. This was successful, as the 3rd Legion Gallica swore allegiance to Elagabalus against the emperor, which caused the new leader of the Praetorian Guard, Ulpius Julianus, to attack the 3rd Legion, possibly on the orders of Macrinus. But he underestimated the legion, and his own men turned on him and joined the rebel force. This prompted Macrinus to have the Senate declare war against Elagabalus and declare them the false Antonius, as well as making Macrinus' son, Diadumenian, the co-emperor. Macrinus also attempted to bribe the 2nd Legion Parthica into loyalty. While Macrinus was at a banquet, Elagabalus' legions executed Julianus and set his severed head to Macrinus, which caused the 2nd Legion to change loyalties, and Macrinus to retreat to Antioch, a Greek-built city in southern Turkey. On the 8th of June, 218, Elagabalus' legions, commanded by Gannes, fought against Macrinus and Diadumenian's troops, as well as their very own Praetorian Guard, which ended in a victory for Elagabalus, where the emperor's troops broke ranks after he and his son fled. They were both later captured and executed. After this victory, Elagabalus assumed the title of emperor, despite not being officially crowned at this point, a practice which was unusually common among the emperors in the 3rd century. Not long after this, Elagabalus was officially crowned as emperor, consul, and Pontifex Maximus, and their mother and grandmother were both made Augusti, the female name for Augustus, denoting female members of the emperor's family. And the commander of the 3rd Legion, Publius Valerius Comazon, was made the Praetorian prefect. Before Elagabalus left Antioch, they had to put down multiple revolts, including the 4th Legion Scythica, who had captured and executed Macrinus' son, but the centurion who had committed the execution was promoted to a higher rank, causing the second in command of the legion, Gellius Maximus, to be angered. that he was not promoted and was left in charge of defending the city of Zeugma, so he and a small group of soldiers who were still loyal to Macrinus turned on Elagabalus but were quickly quashed, and Gellius was personally executed by Elagabalus. Herodian, who is believed to be the most reliable contemporary source on Elagabalus, states that they would wear purple and gold robes in a Styrian style and claimed that when Bassianus was performing their priestly duties, dancing around the altars in barbarian fashion to the music of flutes, pipes, and every kind of instrument. When they arrived in Rome, they executed many who had aided Macrinus, but the members of the Roman elite that had supported him were only exiled in an attempt to avoid the elite turning on the new emperor, especially since Elagabalus promoted the majority of their own allies to positions of power. Elagabalus was very well known as an extremely controversial figure, and this is illustrated by the amount of religious changes they made, the first of which reportedly occurring before they even arrived in Rome. They sent a painting of themselves to be hung over a statue of Victoria, the personification of victory, in the Senate. Offerings were often given at this statue, meaning that it seemed the senators were making offerings Elagabalus himself. In 220 CE, Elagabalus made Baal the chief god rather than Jupiter, and made themselves the highest priest of the unconquered god, the son Elagabal, supreme pontiff, and built a massive temple to Baal called the Elagabalium, which contained a massive black meteorite from Syria that was said to represent Baal because, according to Herodian, there were markings that are pointed out, which the people would like to believe are a picture of the sun, because this is how they see them, as well as moving sacred objects from multiple other temples there. This replacing of their head god with a foreign deity and the emperor making themselves high priest understandably made many Roman citizens shocked and angry. In an attempt to make reparations, it is believed that they made one or all three of Venus or Minerva and Urania the wives of Baal in their new religion. Later that year, Elagabalus married Aquila Severa, a Vestal virgin, priestesses of the virgin goddess Vesta, who swore to stay virgins until 40 to 60 years old, because they believed that together they would have godly children. It is debated among historians whether their relationship was consensual, or whether Elagabalus, whose rank is Pontifex Maximus, meant they were in charge of the Vestal virgins, forced Aquila to marry them. According to Dio, Elagabalus, in an attempt to increase their holiness, had themselves circumcised, and would dance around a statue of Baal in front of the entire Senate, and would hold a massive festival at the summer solstice, where huge amounts of free food was provided to the public, and they would ride throughout the city on a massive chariot, bedecked with gold and jewels. One of Elagabalus's tamest controversies was allowing women into the Senate, as well as establishing a women's Senate. These probably occurred at the request of Julian Mesa, who held a lot of the true power in Rome. Elagabalus was married to 4 women in their lifetime, including twice marrying Aquila Severa, and they married at least one man, but had sexual relationships with at least one other man. The number of unofficial sexual relationships they had is unknown, as they were stated by Cassius Dio to have prostituted themselves at taverns and brothels. Based on this information, it is believed that Elagabalus was bisexual. The gender identity of Elagabalus is unknown, as in the times such things were not well understood, and sources about it being very unreliable. It is believed that transgender people, especially trans women, male to female, are accepted in Roman society. Elagabalus was described in many contemporary sources as being effeminate, and it is said that they wore wigs, makeup, and dresses, and would want to be addressed as feminine. as well as offering vast sums of money to any doctor who could surgically give them a vagina. All this evidence seems to point to them being a trans woman, but on the other hand, much of what was written about them was destroyed after their death. As such, we cannot know whether they identified as a woman, or feminine man, or something else entirely. If Elagabalus was in fact a trans woman, then they would have been the only female Roman emperors. Another thing they are famous for is the fact that they would hold lotteries, including banquets, where they would give out gifts, often in groups of 10. But not all gifts were good. Some included things such as 10 eggs or 10 flies. Another type of lottery included launching prizes into crowds. These included normal things such as coins, more odd things such as livestock or slaves, and even joke gifts such as beehives or snakes. All of this turned public opinion against Elagabalus, and Julia Maesa, seeing this, made her other grandson, Severus Alexander, Elagabalus' adoptive son, and as such, heir. In the June of 221 CE, possibly on the 26th of June, Severus Alexander was made consul. Severus Alexander was much more popular than Elagabalus, so Elagabalus made multiple attempts on his life, as well as claiming without evidence that he was ill and near death, which caused an investigation by the Praetorian Guard. After this, Elagabalus, Severus Alexander, and Julius Soaemius visited the Praetorian camp, and when the Praetorian guards cheered for Severus but not Elagabalus and their mother, Elagabalus ordered the Praetorian guards to be executed, causing a riot. Realizing this, Julia and the emperor fled, with Elagabalus trying to escape in a chest, but they were captured and stabbed to death, and theirs and their mother's corpses were stripped naked and thrown into the river Tiber. After their assassination, all of their social and religious changes were reversed, and they were removed from public record, including multiple statues of them, whose faces were replaced with those of Alexander Severus, or Roman gods. Their successor, Alexander Severus, had a very peaceful and prosperous reign, but it also coincided with the rise of the Sassanid Empire and increasing incursions by the Germanic tribes. He was assassinated by soldiers, and he was the final emperor before the crisis of the 3rd century.